Hello and welcome to Morning Brew on Labour Social. I hope you can see me. I hope you can hear me. I'm in a hotel. I'm in a hotel room in London, and I've just had to try and turn it into a makeshift studio. It's a bit like in Mission Impossible when they have to do all their spy stuff in a hotel room. So that's why my microphone is here at the moment. It's actually sitting on a case. Because there's no table. So what I'm doing now is I'm actually bringing up your messages on my phone. So if I look at my phone, it's not that I'm playing Pokemon or anything. I'm actually looking at your messages as they come in. So also the internet obviously in the hotel is awful because that's the rule, and so I'm using my mobile data. So any technical problems, I'm really sorry. I've done the best I can. But yeah, if you can hear me, that'll be great. That's great. That's really good. So it is Friday, the 22nd of September 2023. And oh my lord, we have just entered this new dimension of the Tory party. Just losing their freaking tiny minds, because it's been a year now. It's been a year since Trussonomics, since the Queen died and Liz Truss decided that she was going to crash the economy based on information given to her. Well, orders, arguably. Orders given to her by the IEA, the Institute of Economic Affairs, a mysteriously funded think tank which is based out of 55 Tottenham Street, London, which nobody knows who funds them, and they won't tell anyone because people might be mean to them on the internet. That's literally what they say. They say, although we can't tell anyone who funds us because we might, get trolled on Twitter, or X as it's now known. And I'm just thinking, okay. So you're not telling anyone who funds you. What you do is you try to destroy the British economy, and get this, it's a charity. It's a charitable foundation. Yeah, it doesn't pay any tax. It's a charity. It's a charity. So anyway, Rishi Sunak this week, obviously we talked about it yesterday where Phil was on the show, and I did a video about it yesterday as well, about Rishi Sunak's connections to the oil industry via Infosys, the company that his father-in-law founded that still operates in Russia. And Rishi Sunak, our Prime Minister, is still making money every single day by dint of having shares in a company that is still doing business in Russia. Even though 18 months ago it said it was going to divest all of its interests in Russia, it lied. What? A company lie? A company lie? Come on, please. But one of the big news stories today is that the German car industry, ladies and gentlemen, the German car industry is not going to leap to our defence as we were told that it would by various scumbags, or as I like to call them, Brexiteers, or as I like to call them, scumbags. Sorry, I got that the wrong way around. They said that the German automobile industry will leap to our defence. It will leap to our defence. Well, you see, there's a thing called rules of origin. And it's a bit complicated, but essentially, you've got to have at least 45% of your car manufactured in Europe to qualify for diplomatic immunity or whatever it is, right? Essentially, and you can get raw materials from another place, but you need to mix it yourself. You need to put it all together yourself. And because China has cornered the market on lithium, which we need for our batteries, and the EU and the UK and the US, to be honest, are a bit slow off the mark on all that, considering we have got lithium in every single mobile phone, video camera, laptop, everything has been for years. I mean, lithium batteries on Sony products have been around since the 90s. I knew, because the battery that I've got on the light above my camera is actually the battery off my first camcorder that I got back in 1997. So there you go. Good old tech. Literally old tech. My God, it's 26 years old. Wow. Anyway, so essentially, we're going to be in a situation where we have this flood of electric cars coming from Europe that are being manufactured in Europe, but it's going to be difficult for them to sell them in the UK because there's going to be a massive tariff, 10% tariff, slapped on it because of rules of origin rules. And because this is going to affect the EU, we were hoping, the Brexiteers were hoping, that the German car manufacturers would trot over the horizon and say, no, it's going to save the day, like Sean Connery at the end of Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. That didn't happen. It hasn't happened, and the EU Commissioner has said, no, we're going to just leave it as it is, because that's the deal that we struck with the British, which was that, if they want to buy our cars, it's going to cost 10% more. And also, if Britain wants to sell its cars to us, we're going to slap that tariff on as well, because it's got to be an equal playing field for all countries around the world, because we're all part of the WTO. And they're the rules that are set by the WTO. Let's go WTO! Yay! All those people, all those charlatans crying out, the WTO is amazing. Remember them? Yeah. Well, anyway. So here we are. Yeah, we're going to basically... It's not WTO rules, because obviously that's... if you have no rules, you have no deals in place. We do have deals in place, but the EU is saying, listen, this is the deal you struck. You're stuck with it. And it's going to destroy British manufacturing when it comes to cars, because... It's inhibiting our progress in a market on our doorstep when we might be able to sell cars, because there's lots of rich people live very close, and I don't know what we're going to do about it. There's literally less than 5 million people live in New Zealand, so our new trade deal with them is not really going to help much. There's 25 million people in Australia, which is less than half the population of the UK, but they're a lot closer to China and Japan, which also produces right-hand drive cars, because they drive on the left in Japan. India also drives on the left, so they have right-hand drive cars. So as India builds up its manufacturing base over the next few years, we're going to see competition from them as well. And it's a lot closer from India to Australia. I'll draw you a map if you like, but... no, it's not looking good. It's really not looking good. It's also not looking good for Wetherspoons, who are having to sell more of their pubs to leverage their incredible amount of debt that they're in. Wetherspoons does look like, and you can play this back in a year's time or a couple of years, and you can say either, Graham, you were dead right, or Graham, you were dead wrong. But it looks like Wetherspoons is truly circling the drain, like they're servicing their debt by selling pubs. That's not a good place to be in as a business. That's called what we call a death spiral. And the thing is that these hedge funds that wanted Brexit because they are vulture capitalists, they'll start picking at the bones. Wait till the hedge funds start, swirling around Wetherspoons, and the whole thing will collapse faster than a house of cards. And... Tim, privately educated, self-made millionaire, Martin, is going to have a little bit of egg all over his face, which is, fair enough. That's the place for it. So thank you very much to Gary Arnold, who's just dropped £2 into the super chat. Really appreciate it, matey. He's awake, says Gary Arnold. Thank you. I am awake. I hope this is coming through. Is this working? Can anyone hear me? Am I talking to myself? How can you tell when a Tory is lying? Asked Tox. Well, their mouth is moving. He speaks. WTO is built on GATT 24, so 24 countries are using the world name to force their trading conditions onto all. No, there's last I checked, there were 146 countries that are signed up to the WTO now. It did start off about the General Assembly on Tariffs and Trade or something, like back in the olden days, like in the First World War or something, and then it became the WTO as more countries joined it. But force their they're spelled incorrectly, trading conditions on all. Well, you see, the thing is that all countries want to be protectionists. They want to look after their own industry. But the thing is that a lot of countries don't have the raw materials to make everything for themselves. Britain doesn't have enough energy, for instance. We could have, because we've got enough wind and solar and hydroelectric and nuclear to run all our grid at the moment, but we chose not to build it. So we could have enough, but we chose not to build it. So we're completely reliant on energy, i.e. oil and gas, coal, coming in from other countries, like, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Yemen. No, we don't get anything from Yemen, I don't think. Maybe Libya. But yes, it's not great. Russia. That was only 3% of our gas that we got, and suddenly our gas bills went through the roof. And also, it's going to be really expensive this winter as well, as the government has increased the amount that you will have to spend on our bills, because they're not giving us a subsidy anymore. Nice of them. But yeah, does Tim Martin say he's self-made? At least he admits it's all his own fault, says Peter. I don't know if he says he's self-made. It's just something that people parrot when they talk about people like Rocco Forte or James Dyson or Richard Branson. They go, oh, he's a self-made millionaire. I'm like, fuck, he is. What? What are you talking about? He went to public school, mate. He went to school with millionaires. You know what? When you want to start your own business, it's really handy to have a mate who can lend you 50 grand. It's just a really handy thing to be able to have, is that on tap. And if you don't have that, good luck starting a business, mate. A big one, anyway. Some manufacturers, JLR, will probably be fine, as most have exported outside the EU. Toyota and Nissan, however, will be knackered with the 10% charge. Yeah, well, maybe this will see the Nissan plant in Sunderland close down, and despite the government trying to bail it out and give loads of subsidies to it, and yeah, I mean, the government gave loads a massive subsidy, didn't they, to the Gigavolt factory, which moved from the northeast, which is now going to be down in the southwest instead. Like, moved it to the other side of the country. I think to near where Jacob Rees-Mogg has a constituency. But yeah, taxpayers' money. There's any private companies out there that would like some free taxpayers' money? Oh yeah, I'll have that. That sounds great. EU source egg, says Cathal. I don't know what that's about. I haven't had enough caffeine. Well, Duke, I normally have a brew, don't I, in my morning brews. But I made a cup of tea for myself, but I'm in London and it's horrible. Like, it's got all like scum on the top of it. It's disgusting. I don't know why anyone puts up with it. I guess you all have filters in London or something, or I don't know, people to swallow, put the water in the mouth and then swish it out and then spit it out for you, or whatever rich London people do. I don't know. I'm from the north. We're all still living in coal mines, and working downhill. But yeah, it's not great. Not great cup of tea, which explains a lot, actually, when you think about London and sort of attitude and everyone's sort of in your way. I got shouted at by a cyclist yesterday on a zebra crossing. I was crossing a zebra crossing and a cyclist went, "Oi!" And like, I had to jump out the way of them, and I was like, I'm sure zebra crossings also apply to cyclists as well, but apparently not. No, get out of my way. I'm a cyclist, which isn't making people like cyclists. You know, I try to defend cyclists a lot, but to make my job harder. Jesus. Anyway, so what we've had this week is the Tories massively U-turning on one of the only election promises that they were looking like they could possibly consider. It wasn't looking great, but now it's looking impossible. Like, literally impossible. Like, they are not going to keep to their commitments, their legal obligations even, towards net zero. And they've just thrown a cat amongst the pigeons. And they've done this because they know there's an election coming up, and they know that Labour are going to have to U-turn on they won't have to U-turn, they'll have to correct the Tories' U-turn and put it back to 2030. So all the manufacturers are looking at this going, well, we're just going to take it as read. It's going to happen in 2030 that petrol and diesel cars are going to have to stop being sold as new. You still be able to buy second-hand ones, fine. You still be able to buy your classic cars, you'll be able to buy your E-Types and your old Ferraris. No one's going to take away your Toyota Supra, all right? It's fine. You can keep it. Keep the car. Just if you want to buy a new one, it's got to be electric. The government has not done enough to prepare us for the electric revolution. They have not put enough infrastructure in. They haven't put enough redundancy effectively into the grid to allow for people charging overnight, etc. And obviously, loads of people park on the street. And how do you charge them overnight without having cables all over the pavement? Making it very difficult to walk down, push a buggy down, or be in a wheelchair. There's a lot of things that we're going to have to sort out before it is available to all. Also, electric cars at the moment are just unfeasibly expensive. They're ridiculously expensive, like £50,000. You could buy 5 houses for that in the 90s in Liverpool. I mean, it's so expensive. Although I think the lower end of the smaller cars are coming down in cost. And it's just this happens with all technology, which is why it winds up, oh, sure, we had to buy a battery for this car and it cost £30,000. And I'm like, well, it was a discontinued battery, so it essentially had to be made, fabricated, because they didn't make that battery anymore. It was for an electric car that was 11 years old. And obviously the tech has just exploded since then. Not in a bad way. I mean, it's just got better. But we see this with every technology. Like when flat screen TVs came out, they are like so much cheaper to make than cathode ray tube TVs because you don't have to blow glass. Like you think about a factory making these things, right? And they're making flat screens. You'll get like maybe one in a few thousand, if that have a defect, broken pixel or whatever, and have to be reformed. Whereas for the cathode ray tubes, that any kind of imperfection, like a little grain of sand in the glass of the CRT, messed it up. So there was a lot more waste, I guess, a lot more wasted. The actual manufacturing process cost a lot more. But when flat screen TVs first came out, they cost way more than cathode ray tube televisions, and then they came down, and they came down in price. They always do. DVDs. I remember when DVD players were like over £1,000. Go into Richer Sounds, you went into Dixon's, and you're like, what? £1,000 for what? Glorified CD player? All right, mate. And then we waited, and we, literally a few years, and it came down to 50 quid. It's like that, because the more companies take up the technology, the cheaper it becomes, the more available it becomes to people. The same is going to happen with electric cars. But the Tories have just made an absolute dog's dinner of any sort of semblance of anything that they could say, oh yeah, we did that. And I realised something today. Any kid in school now, starting their GCSEs, so 16 years old, they've never known a period when the British economy was growing. 16 years, their entire lifespan so far, they have never known a period where overall the economy was growing above what it was, substantially above what it was in 2007 when they were born. Isn't that just the maddest thing? Like, can you believe that? Can you believe that the Tories are still standing up at the dispatch box and saying, we're delivering on the economy. You've got to trust us with the economy. Can't trust Labour with the economy. And I'm like, pretty sure I can't trust you with the economy. I'm going to go out on a limb here and say, you've been in charge for 13 years. You've not managed to make the economy grow an inch. In fact, it was smaller last year than it was 16 years ago. The individual GDP per capita has gone down by about $4,000 per person under the Tories. I mean, it's disgrace. It's an absolute disgrace what they've done, and the fact that the newspapers aren't crowing about it. That's a bad way of putting it. Aren't taking them to task about it is because our newspapers are all owned by four horrible men, four horrible billionaires. In fact, one of whom retired yesterday at the grand old age of 92. He was born in Australia. He's an American citizen. He lives in America. He doesn't give a shit about what happens to us, the people of Britain. And yet, he has had so much of a say on the way people think in this country and who they blame for all the problems that we face. It's all the fault of these people coming over here in small boats. I'm pretty sure it's not. You have to excuse me for a second. I've got to plug my laptop in, because I forgot to plug my laptop in, which would have made sense about 20 minutes ago, but it's done now. So anyway, back into your chats. I'm just going to see if anyone's left me. Has anyone left me a super chat? Any super chats out there? Hello. Also, there's 341 people watching. Hello, every one of you. I was just going to ask if you could give a like. That would be absolutely awesome. The channel over the last month or so has just really taken off, and I'm really happy with the way that things are going on the channel, and we're providing more and more content. We've got more people working with us behind the scenes to get this stuff out, and hopefully over the next few weeks you'll start seeing even more shows, different opinions coming out on Labour Social, because this channel used to be called Graham Hughes Politics, and I don't want it to be Graham Hughes Politics Plus or something. I want it to be a channel where different contributors like Phil, like Agent Thompson, like A. Thompson, like Supertankiii, like Femi can make videos and put them out there for you. Also promoting their own stuff as well, but having slightly different opinions on stuff. But there's a lot of really cool, funny people out there who are happy to help build this channel, and you people watching this now are some of them, and thank you so much. I really, really appreciate it. Anyway, back to the comments. The bad news is that Thames Water extracts water from the Thames, the same Thames that allows untreated sewage to further upstream. Maybe I'll just have a German beer, thanks. Well, back in the medieval days, I'm gonna bloody what's this, mansplain, history splain. I'm going to history explain and put my mouse down. Thank you very much, Plum Duff, for the £5 super chat. I salute you, Graham, in your hat. Oh, thank you very much, Plum Duff. Back in the medieval times, children used to drink beer. Why? Because the beer obviously had gone through a kind of purification process in fermenting, and it was safer to drink than the water from the river, where the village upstream, do what Thames Water are doing now and just effluent in there. So that's all good. Angelo Norse, thank you very much for the £2 super chat. Really appreciate that. There's a lot of lithium in the oceans. There is. That's very true. Also, it's one of the lightest chemical elements. It's the third in the periodic table after hydrogen and helium is lithium. It's very, very light, which is good for batteries, because obviously if you're using a lead battery, they're heavy as hell. But even so, electric cars are slightly heavier, and this is something else that we've got to take into account. I mean, look, when it comes to like an SUV, or people carry, or whatever they call them, there's not that much in it. I mean, it's not that much, but a smaller car, you're looking at up to like 50% more heavy if it's an electric one, rather than being an internal combustion engine, right? Big problem for our infrastructure, because our roads can barely cope with the weight of the vehicles on it at the moment. And one of the reasons for this is because the damage to a road goes up, as I believe, look, I'm not an engineer, but I believe it goes up exponentially, like it goes up way faster. So if you have, say, a vehicle and it causes X amount of damage to the road, and then you double the weight of that vehicle, instead of it doing double the damage, it actually does 4 times the damage. It's a rough back of the envelope calculation, but essentially one of the reasons why we have so many potholes is because of these lorries that are really heavy, that are going around suburban streets and causing potholes, because they're so bloody heavy. But we've got loads of tunnels and bridges, viaducts, flyovers that really won't be able to take the sustained weight of a million electric cars. So we're going to have to look at how our infrastructure works. One of the things I would do is do everything in my power to take the trucks off the road. I don't want, have them on the motorway. That's fine, but when you get to a city or a town, there's a depot and it gets loaded onto a smaller van. That's what I would like to see. And I know people go, well, but what about supermarkets? What about this? There are ways of getting stuff to places without having to put it on a 40-foot container. The only reason why we do that is because it's the cheapest way to do it. So you make it so it's more cost effective, or subsidies are given, or some kind of incentive, or the disincentive not to do otherwise. And you could have a situation where trucks, those big bastards that you see on the motorway, maybe they just use the motorway. Or maybe, I'm going to put this out there, we could move the cargo that we move around the country, all the freight, we could put it on the train tracks, because we've got train tracks all over the country, and they usually don't do anything at night, because we don't really have night trains in this. But you could just have Just saying. Anyway, moving swiftly on before someone shouts at me for saying, I'm a truck driver, stop saying things. Thank you very much to, I said that one, for Angela. And Owen Jones, someone said, who's that? Steve's Retro Loft says, true, Spectrum Plus 3 came out with distorted sound due to badly designed circuitry. The internet has a fix 40 years later. Fantastic. Was it the Plus 3 that was that the keys used to fall out? If you turned it upside down, the keys would just fall out of it? Or was that the ZX81? Great days. Hydrogen is and always was the answer, even if we have to produce it by putting more renewable energy in to get less hydrogen out. Hydrogen's not the answer. I mean, maybe if you've got hydrogen cell batteries, yeah, okay, if you can make them work, which you can't at the moment, not at scale. But the idea that we're going to put hydrogen in our cars is for the birds, because it has to be cooled down to over minus 200 degrees Celsius. I mean, come on, seriously, you're going to have that in your car, are you? And then, what, if it gets warm, it just expands at a ridiculous rate to four times the size of the car? Okay. No, hydrogen is not a goer. And it's the reason why the fossil fuel extinction juice companies are basically pushing it. Because they're like, oh, well, how about hydrogen? Because they know that the only way to make hydrogen at scale at the moment is to use fossil fuels in order to make the hydrogen. So there are some applications for industrial use, absolutely. I think if we had a way of making steel using hydrogen, great, use that. But when it comes to how we operate our cars and things like that, I mean, the idea of having to have these tanks all over the country and these tankers that are super cool tankers going up and down the motorways. Oh my God, if one of them jackknifed, could you imagine? And then you've got the storage problems in the services. Obviously, you'll have to keep it really cold. Minus 200 degrees, bloody Celsius. I mean, for Christ's sake, every single service station has got to keep it that cold, and then you got to pump this freezing cold liquid into you. You know, when you get a bit of diesel or a little bit of petrol on your hand, when you do that, your hand will drop off. It's just the idea. No, it's just not going to happen. I mean, and this is why it's always 10 years away. 10 years away. It's going to happen in 10 years. We've got electricity now, and everyone has electricity going to their homes, and we can, actually charge a lot of things with electricity that is already there. The infrastructure's there. It needs upgrading, yes, but it's there at the moment. The hydrogen thing feels to me like reinventing the wheel, because the fossil fuel companies absolutely hate electric vehicles with all of their... everything about them hates them. I mean, you saw it in the 1950s when Firestone... Was it Firestone Tires who bought the trolley company in LA and dismantled it, and now everyone has to have a car, and that's why the LA roads are just insane. And then you had the EVs in the 1990s. The General Motors made an EV, which they decided once the rules changed about the selling of EVs, they took them all back because they only leased, you weren't allowed to buy them, and they crushed them and put them in the desert. There's a documentary called Who Killed the Electric Car, and it's just like, yeah, these companies do not want electric cars. They will do everything in their power to stop electric cars from happening, and it takes governments with guts to actually stand up against them and say, no, you are making electric cars because our children deserve a future that doesn't involve a horrific climate change disaster, weather disaster, every single bloody day somewhere in the world, billions of refugees, a flight of resources not being able to be taken out the ground because of just the conditions, making vast swathes of the planet uninhabitable, because some of the biggest cities in the world are very, very close to the sea level. So the sea level goes up. There's a lot of places like New York and London, they're not gonna do too well out of it. Just saying. But they don't seem to care about that. Thank you very much to Johnny Copperhead for the £2 super chat. Super chat won't allow the words Tory and scum. Well, you got to find ways around it by doing a $sign instead of the S in scum. Brian Ferguson, €10 super chat. Thank you very much. I share your politics, Graham's politics. Keep it up. I wish I still had your energy. Pity that you, Phil, Tanner et al. Are putting more out there than the party. Well, yeah. Johnny Copperhead, thank you very much for the £5 super chat. Sorry I'm late. It appears I can no longer tell the time since the Tory mob broke everything. I love that. They broke your watch. I'm very sorry to hear, Johnny, that they broke your watch. We were talking about this, like, someone was told about Labour Social, and they said, oh yeah, no, Graham has seen his stuff, and they said, how much is Labour paying for Graham and Phil to do this? And my mate who was talking to her just went, you think Labour are paying for this? Anyway, but things could change at the conference in a couple of weeks' time. Labour conference in Liverpool. The reason why I'm in London today, it is the march, the anti-Brexit, the pro-EU, the rejoin. That's it. The rejoin EU march, which is tomorrow at 12 o'clock at Hyde Park, and then we'll be walking to Parliament Square, and then there'll be speeches from the likes of Mike Galsworthy and Femi and all our friends from back in the day, from the good old Brexit wars. God, that was awful. But it was nice. There was good camaraderie. At the time, but obviously the baddies won, unfortunately, and they decided that we should leave the EU and they should destroy our economy forever. Because that would be a good thing. That would be a good thing. That was a good thing you did, Anthony. That's a good thing you did, Anthony. Please don't kill me. Anyway, so, that the little Twilight Zone reference there for anyone who's into the Twilight Zone. Anyway, so, I'm here for the march tomorrow. So if you're there, look out for me. I'll be wearing my bollocks to Brexit beanie, which I might go and get. It's really hot in here. I'll just be back in a minute. Do you know what? I sometimes put this on when I've got my green screen on. It kind of disappears in the green screen. There you go. That's lovely. There you go. Right, so I'm going to the anti-Brexit march tomorrow. Well, the rejoin EU, because we're moving on to the next thing now. I mean, I made a video on the day that we left the EU at the end of January 2020, and I said we are no longer Remainers, we are now rejoiners. So this is the culmination of that. But then also in 2 weeks' time, me and Femi are meeting up again in Liverpool, along with Phil, along with Supertankiii, to give a couple of talks at the Labour Party conference. One of them is actually going to be in the conference, so that's only going to be available for people who have a conference pass. But we are doing a fringe event on the Monday. It's Monday the 9th of October, and it's £3 for a ticket from Eventbrite plus booking fee. Sorry about that. And then it's £5 on the door. But if you are a YouTube member or a patron of mine or a patron of Labour Social, if you have a look at your messages or the notices I put up, there's a code there, and you should be able to get a free ticket using that code. So let me know how you get on with that. You get to have we're going to have a panel talking about social media and Labour and how Labour could possibly use social media better. We'll be having a Q&A, and we'll be having drinks in the bar afterwards. So we'd love it if you could come and join us. Right, I'm off now to set up another studio somewhere else in London, probably someone's flat, and make it seem that, you know, this all makes sense. I'm trying to do it all like seamlessly, so no one notices that I'm actually in a hotel room. I think that's quite good. Do you know what I mean? You wouldn't know unless I told you. Would you know? I don't know. Maybe you would. Maybe you didn't notice that my collar's been up all the way through this. Yeah, man, I'm popping my collar. Brilliant rant on H2 hydrogen and pro EVs. Yeah, Musk is a crazy shit political and media expert, but Brill, Tesla, and Dragon spaceship maker can't win them all. Well, Andrew, yeah, but he bought the companies, didn't he? I mean, I don't know about SpaceX, but definitely with Tesla, he did not found Tesla. He just sort of bought it at a certain point. He's a salesman, isn't he? The vast majority of his output has been vaporware so far, but you know, we'll see. One of the things that I can't get my head around before I go, self-driving cars. I just don't know how they work. Like how they could ever work. They just go around killing people. Like maybe on a motorway, if they were all self-driving and they could all communicate with each other. But even then, if it snows, no, it's still gonna go to shit. Like if it snows and they can't see the lines on the ground, and there's no sense of context. It's all AI. There's no sense of context. So if there's a, I don't know, how does it decide if it has to swerve into an animal? Which animal would be better to swerve into? Is it based on size? I mean, does that the amount of accident situations? There must be millions of different situations where an accident can occur. And I'm trying to come up with an algorithm that accounts for all of them. I mean, what if someone's dressed as a giant squirrel? You know, like, do you remember Trigger Happy TV? Do you remember Trigger Happy TV, right? So imagine there's a self-driving car and there's a guy dressed as a snail and he gets to the zebra crossing and then he gets on his knees and he starts going across the zebra crossing on his knees dressed as a snail, like in Trigger Happy TV. Dead funny, you know, haha, wasn't that funny? But a self-driving car would be like, oh, well, that's not a human. Do you know what I mean? Like, how do you know? No sense of context. Like modern architecture. Anyway, so I'm going to have to leave it at that. Thank you very much for the super chat. When will the Tories stop lying? I think it's going to be the 4th of never. By the looks of things. I'm going to be back later today for Labour Social. I don't know if we're going to be able to do we normally do a chat at 1 o'clock, me and Phil. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do that. I'm going to try my best for the agenda, but I can't guarantee it because I'm trying to arrange to meet up with some of the Remain lot or the Rejoin lot to do a Three Blokes in a Pub, pubcast with them later today. So if I can do that, brilliant. But I will be back this evening for Labour Social. So if you could tune into that, that would be great. I'll obviously put a notification up on the YouTube channel before that starts, so you know when and where it's going to take place. Well, you know where. It's going to be on YouTube. Yeah! Okay, right, that's it. So thank you very much for watching. Thanks very much for joining us on this beautifully sunny morning, actually. It's a bit hot this morning. It was pouring down yesterday. And until next time, I'll say hello, good evening, welcome, and goodbye.